with a specimen so disturbing, so suspicious, and so anomalous that it's taken me 5 years to fully process. I've carved out a career in creating the taxonomy of the eldritch horrors of kids' films, and I'm still in the process of creating my 15-hour-long dissertation on Mort from Madagascar as mere preparation for this. The only being to completely shake me to my core out of pure incomprehension. It's a character from the self-aware cosmic horror story distilled for kids, known as Horton Hears a Who. Like Mort, this character is intentionally mysterious and creepy as a sort of ironic parody. Regardless of whether it's ironic or not, though, it exists and therefore has lore to it. This being is not the main character of this film. It's not even relevant to the genocidal dictator Karen Guru villainess that threatens the stakes of the story. It's just a small, little, confusing thing that goes totally unexplained and certainly doesn't belong there. I'm going to explain this weird joke, and then use it to flesh out the cosmic convergences and quantum entanglement this film literally mentions as brief offhand comments. Every film has at least one thing that doesn't make sense in it, one little thread you can tug at, whether it's a plot hole or not. You can tug at it. Even kids' films, again, whether intentional or not, as you should be able to tell from my channel. This is no exception. Sometimes these threads lead to predicting the next episode of a TV show. Sometimes they answer intentional mysteries, which is the area where fan theories start to come in, or at least try to. Sometimes, though, they can help better explain things the film chooses not to care about, such as speculation on the lore that isn't well explained in the film. And in this instance, the thread we are tugging at today is Katie. I'm the Theorizer. I shouldn't really have to explain this, but again, the Katie mystery is the perfect little thing to start digging at because it has all the staples of something that can be dug at. She's clearly strange, intentionally made to act bizarre and random. Beyond it being a joke, there is no given explanation for things like the very ending when Katie is floating through space, so I will give one. That's my rationale behind doing all of this, if you still don't know for some reason. Katie is just a quiet little yellow yak who hangs out with a few other kids in Horton's jungle. She's a part of his small class of students. As to what he is teaching them, I do not know. In her first scene, she appears in Horton's class last and smiles blankly into space before opening her mouth and going, She has some pretty sharp teeth and constantly spaces out. I do not know the evolutionary advantage of this. I will, though. I will. Later, she is seen running in circles going, ah, with her mouth still open. A leaf bug flies by and her tongue shoots out like a frog as she eats it up. Now that is abnormal. It doesn't die, though, and she goes, ah, again, causing it to fly out. Everyone is frightened by her presence. In a later scene, she stares off into another direction and then teleports behind Horton. At this point, all of the kids are inspired by Horton to make up imaginary pocket universes on their own clovers, and Katie says that on hers, everyone's a pony that eats rainbows and excretes butterflies. Weirded out, Horton hesitantly calls it beautiful. Her eyes then split apart and she sticks the clover on her head. She then gets up on her hind legs, sticks her arms out like a zombie, and moans, as she shuffles backwards into the jungle. Katie seems very detached. She bumps into things constantly, but the absolute most inexplicable event that proves this is a thread we definitely should be tugging at is at the end, where it turns out she can fly. She goes, ah, and just floats up into the void of the sky. It's not even some one-time joke either. We can see her floating in the background of the next shot, and then in the very last scene of the entire film, in outer space, out from Horton's jungle world, we see she has transcended her world, which is, again, also a speck in space, and she now floats out in the vacuum, alive. Going, Not only Does Katie definitely know the jungle is also on a speck, but I believe she knows a hell of a lot more than just that. Because for her to know that, it would require her also knowing a ton of things beneath that fundamental fact. A ton of things that basically make this whole cosmic horror story work in the first place. Unlike Mort, who has seasons of material to work through, Katie is easier, and thus will be a quicker solve. There's less of a chance that I will encounter a plot hole, right? With Mort, I'm trying to be as just flat-out logic as possible. Katie won't be any less horrific, though. In fact, she's possibly even more so.
When you have wall-to-wall Wi-Fi throughout your whole home, you can use it everywhere. Yes, even there. Get wall-to-wall Wi-Fi with Cox Panoramic Wi-Fi.
You see, Katie does not belong in the jungle. She's not a yak. She's posing as a yak. Quite poorly, might I add. Evidence number 1, she doesn't act like a yak. She has sharp teeth and a spring-loaded tongue with extremely strange and anomalous behavior to accompany these features. Evidence number 2, she doesn't look like a yak. In fact, she looks like a clover, but more on that later. Evidence number 3, Katie very likely has no origin in this jungle. What I mean is, I can't find a parent in this film that looks similar enough to her. The other kids all have distinct, almost identical parents that hang out with the helicopter Karen. Katie does not. This should be striking and shocking in itself. The fact that the animators didn't care to show her parents is now deeper evidence that they intend more for Katie. There's the superficial evidence, like her floating in space, but on a deeper level of analysis, there's the fact that she has no parents, if you really think about it. So now, Blue Sky Studios is rewarding people who do a little digging. This proves it's intentionally deeper than meets the eye, which is just perfect because it means this little string I'm tugging at is extremely valid, and by extension, it means that Katie is an undocumented creature. So with this in mind, let's go back and view her behavior through the lens of her being a cosmic anomaly. Her going to space and blanking out is sensible now and puts into context what she might know about her world. It makes me inclined to think that her comment about rainbow-eating ponies is true. She's not like the other kids, and her reaction by backing up into the jungle should be further proof of that. So theoretically, if she's being serious here, what would that mean? Well, the likelihood that Katie could find another clover with a pocket universe on it is slim to none. So if she's being serious here, and it is her world, like she says, then it means Katie can create pocket universes spontaneously. The fact of the matter is, she looks more like a clover than a yak, and probably is some sort of pocket universe. Here's the thing. The original Whoville came from a yellow flower, but was it created there? It almost seems tucked down under the ground in a hidden area. There's a certain level of intent to all of this that makes me suspicious. Even weirder is how there's a whole sea of pink clovers that Vlad could drop the speck into. Very strange, and all of this is really inexplicable, but I seriously, legitimately think Katie is behind it all because she's the only character who has demonstrated substantial cosmic awareness and the capability to handle it. I have a theory I made exactly 4 years ago regarding a conspiracy within the Whoville government. It was very solid, it was bulletproof, it's a theory, and I've always wanted to tackle the other side of the coin, that being the world above Whoville, Horton's jungle. I think Katie is a gateway to the answer I'm looking for. Based on the final shot in the film, I'm more inclined to believe that each speck really is floating out there in space and that the mayor of Whoville really is the same size as Horton, but through quantum entanglement and cosmic alignments, various worlds can function as gateways to others in manners such as this. So Horton can affect this speck, and it'll affect Whoville's actual planet out there in space because of how all the worlds are connected. It's like how the Grinch takes place on a snowflake, but not really. Or maybe the speck really was just that small, but I'm sure it probably fell from space because the conditions out there are much more stable than, well, on another speck. Point is, Katie knows all of this and uses it to her advantage. She's the only one who has transcended out into this void that contains every single speck, and she changes her size and teleports around. She doesn't seem remotely surprised. She doesn't seem remotely anything, just extant. Like an observer or caretaker of the worlds who projects herself as a character onto any world that needs her assistance at a given time. I also noticed that one of the mayor's daughters looked more like a human version of Katie, and also behaved similarly. Hetty is her name. This is more of an unfounded suspicion, though, regardless of how likely it is that Katie is the keeper of the multiverse. I say all of these things because of, again, the intentional nature of the dynamics between the worlds. She is the eater of worlds who opens her mouth as a gateway to the void. Notice how she just leaves right after Whoville is saved. Seriously? 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 She's all like, my job here is done. Back to the nothingness. Originally, I thought Horton made Whoville up, and everyone ended the film indulging in his psychosis. But then, to go a level deeper, I thought maybe it was actually the reverse, and everything was a way of the mayor coping with his stress, to offload their existence to a fake god in the sky. But none of these add up, because the truth of the matter is everything is real and in its own plane. I also feel like the hippity-hoppity get-me-your-manager lady has a history with all of this because of her insane reluctance and such. Or maybe she was just a bullied creative in her youth. Or maybe she just fears a communistic uprising. Who knows? This film is loaded with messages and irony to the highest degree. It's unspeakably amazing. But there are too many possibilities regarding the characters outside of Katie, so let's go back to her and try looking at her physiology. So like all Lovecraftian abominations, Katie is unfathomable in her true form. We can catch a glimpse of it, though, through the cracks in her thin animal mask. She has teeth that can drill through tungsten, a tongue that can encompass worlds and consume them in a single gulp. Imagine looking up across the horizon and seeing what you think is the sun, only for it to turn around and reveal its razor-sharp fangs that lurch towards everything you've ever known at the speed of light. Then, darkness. You feel the sense of dread looming as everything disintegrates around you. You bear witness as your body painfully dissolves and your soul is ripped from your mind. You scream, but nothing comes out, for your mouth is long gone. You sense the silent agony of billions around you as you are obliterated one quark at a time until the space that once contained you ceases to exist on all levels of dimension. This is Katie, Langolier, head-ass, bitch-ass, dead-ass, bitch. The film even brings this up when they reference how they could be on a speck being witnessed like ants from those above, directly teasing how we, the audience, are the ones above. Katie knows this. That's why she stares at us. In the end, credits of reality roll, killing the world as we move on from the film and consume the next piece of media. Again, this is all speculative. I can always bring more cohesion later, but all I know right now is that Katie is built to be suspiciously aware. All of that said, my fear of Katie has finally gone away.